Priyaya Kesavasya Cha Vishnu Bhakti Prade Deve Sachavachai Namo Namaha. Vrindaya Tulsi Devya Priyaya Kesavasya Cha Vishnu Bhakti Prade Deve Sachavachai Namo Namaha. Jai Tulsi Maharani. We offer our most respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees, who fulfill the desires of everyone, and are full of compassion for the fallen, conditioned souls. Jai. Panchakalpa Durvajya Kripasindavi Vijapati Dana Pavani Vaishnava Namaha. Yeah, I guess just turn it off. I don't know what the problem is. Oh. Okay. I have to tell Jagat. Okay, thank you. Uh-oh. It's marigolds. We got marigolds. And they're strong. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Gopinana Madhava Kiribadhare Gopijana Madhava Kiribadhare Yasudanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasudanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Manachati Jai Hurad Umadava Kunda Vihagunti Jai Radha Madhova Kunda Vihagunti Gopijana Vallabha Giribadhati Gopijana Vallabha Giribadhati Yasodhanandana Prajajana Ranjana Suranandana Prajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachauti Yamunatira Vanachauti Jai Urhadam Madhuva Kunja Vikhahuti Va Kunja Vikhahuti Jai Uradham Madhuva Kunja Vikhahuti Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravitakacharya also Teda Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Chalana Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Premasai Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Purabhu Nityananda Shidvaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Shaim Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuradam Ki Jai Jagadada Sami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shrimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai Sambhaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Gaur All glory is to the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatade Shatarni. So, we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, 29th Chapter, Text 34. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jitam Sukhena Bhavata Paritam Graheshu Yan Nirvishyate Uta Karav Api Griya Kriche Padao Padang Da Chalatas Tavap Padap Mulad Yama Katam Rajam Ato Karavama King Va Chitam Sukena Bhavata Paritam Griheshu Yanirvishat Yutakaravapi Griya Kriche Padau Padam Nachalatastava Padamurad Yamakatam Rajamato Kadavama Kingva Chittang sukena bhavata paritam griheshu. Yan nirvishat yutakarav apikriya kritche. Pado padam na chalatastava padamulad. Yamakatam rajamato karavama kimva. Chitam sukena bhavata paritam griheshu. Yan nirvishatyutakadavapi gridya kritche. Pado padam na chalatastava padamulad. Yamakatam rajakato ato kadavama kimba. Anyone else? Okay. Chitam, our minds. Sukhena, easily. Bhavata, by you. Aparitam, were stolen. Graheshu, in our households. Yat, which. Nirvishyate, were absorbed. Uta, moreover. Karau, our hands. Api, as well. Griyakritye, and household work. Padau, our feet. Padam, one step. Nachalataha, are not moving. Tava, your. Padamulat, away from the feet. Yamaha, we shall go. Katam, how. Brajam, back to Braja. Ata'u, and then. Karavama, we shall do. Kim, what? Va, furthermore. Translation, Until today, our minds were absorbed in household affairs, but you easily stole both our minds and our hands away from our housework. Now our feet won't move one step from your lotus feet. How can we go back to Braja? What would we do there? You can repeat. Until today, our minds were absorbed in household affairs, but you easily stole both our minds and our hands away from our housework. Now our feet won't move one step from your lotus feet. How can we go back to Braja? What would we do there? So purport by the servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Sri Krishna had blown into his flute, and the intoxicating music that had come out of its holes had stolen the minds of the young gopi girls. Now they had come to see Krishna to demand back their stolen property, but they could regain their minds only if Sri Krishna accepted them and engaged with them in conjugal affairs. Sri Krishna might have replied, "But my dear gopis, just go home for now. Let me consider the situation for a day or two, and then I will give you back your minds." In reply to this possible argument, the gopis state, "Our feet refuse to move even one step. So please give us back our minds and accept us, and then we will go." So I'll read the commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Other gopis, revealing their intense love, said, "O king of thieves, we did not come with any other purpose than to recover the treasure that you stole from us. You did not need the help of other thieves to do this. It was accomplished very easily, sukhena, by blowing on your flute. Our hearts are not some cheap thing. They were absorbed completely in our household affairs, and by stealing them, the whole house has been plundered. Actually, however, our hearts are not absorbed in the household. What is it to us if the house catches fire or increases in wealth?" This is the intended meaning of their overstatement. But the mind must become absorbed in those affairs so that the senses can perform their activities. Without the mind, the senses become useless. When you stole our minds, you also stole our senses. Our hands and our eyes and other senses, uta, were all stolen. O gopis, go home today, and after considering tomorrow or the next day, I will return your hearts. To answer to this, the gopis say, without our hearts, our feet cannot move one step away from your feet. So anyways, something's wrong here. Step away from your feet. Anyway, from your feet. It should just be your feet. It's actually a mistake here. Give us our hearts, and we will go. So I'm not going to read the other Acharya's commentaries because they're more or less in the same line. So, Omagana Timiranda Shah Gananjana Shilakaya Chakshur Unmeditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So yesterday we were talking about the pastimes of Narottam Das Thakur, and if you remember, in the early childhood of Narottam Das Thakur, he went bathing in the Padma River. And that Padma River was a place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, according to the biographers and acharyas, had put his prema. And before Narottam Das Thakur was even born, Lord Chaitanya was chanting the name of Narottama. Narottama, of course, means the topmost person. And nobody understood except for Lord Nityananda what was happening. So anyway, so Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just sort of immersed his prema in the Padma River. Somehow or other people who bathed didn't have the same result. I was thinking about that too. So the point is, when Narottam Das Thakur bathed in the Padma River, he got the mercy of Krishna. And then it's described in the biography, which I spoke about last night, he became apathetic. This is what we're talking about right now. Now, the word apathetic is quite interesting. It's not attraction and it's not repulsion. And Krishna Gita talks about this. He says the embodied beings in this world experience attraction and repulsion for things. And Prabhupada sometimes would talk about how repulsion is the opposite side of the same coin, heads or tails, but it's still the same coin. And when you're repulsed by something, you're actually thinking of it and you're actually attached to it. Either you're attached to hating it, or you're trying your best to forget it and not be attached. Just like sometimes you find immature spiritualists, they may treat the opposite sex in a very despicable way because they're very attached, and they just can't face the fact that they're attached. It's too much for their little brains to accommodate that they're not on a very high level of devotional service. So anyway, a spiritualist becomes detached in the sense of apathetic to this world. Whatever, we're not interested in anymore. There's nothing wrong about it. Nothing wrong about our household life. But it's just like, our minds aren't there anymore. So this is a very common occurrence that happens when one gets the mercy of Krishna. I remember even in my own life when I was going to the university and I heard Prabhupada's chanting on the radio, and I've talked about that many times before, I just couldn't keep my mind on my studies anymore. It was just, I couldn't. And I couldn't keep my mind on anything else except for that little blue boy who had stolen the butter and fed it to the monkeys. It was just like, what's happening? I'm going crazy. It's not exactly like the gopis, but you see this particular circumstance or particular dynamic arising in many cases with devotees, and I'm not just talking about immature devotees like myself. Such as in the case, let's even talk about Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, of course, he's the Rasacharya. And so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur happened to be married too. Now, I'm not saying you should imitate this if you happen to be married, but he happened to be married. But he was just with his guru. And the guru gave him the instruction, and some of you heard this story before, gave him the instruction, go back and spend some time with your wife. And reluctantly, of course, it was his guru's instruction. He had to follow the guru's instruction. You can't disobey the order of the guru. Whatever the guru says, yes, sir, or else you go to the brig. I don't know if you know what a brig is. That means jail. So, anyway, he said, yes, sir. He goes home, sees his wife, lies down next to his wife and recites the Bhagavatam all night long, gets up and goes back to his guru the next day. Now, I'm not saying this is what you should do. I'm going to present the opposite side in a few minutes. And then you have the story of Narottama Das Thakur and Ramchandra Kaviraj, who was the disciple of Srinivasa Acharya. And they were so attached to each other's association, spiritually, Dadati Pradiganat, Granati Guyamakati Prachite Bhunkte Bhojite Chaiva, that they couldn't bear to be separated. So Narottama Das Thakur also told Ramchandra Kaviraj, go back to your wife. Now, please don't take these things out of context. I don't want anyone who's listening to get really upset with what I'm talking about, because I'm going to present the opposite side. And so Ramchandra Kaviraj said, okay, and he walked like 100 meters or 100 feet or whatever it was, and he just couldn't bear to go back. And he was just like sweeping the temple, which is close by. And then when Narottama Das Thakur looked up and saw that he was sweeping the temple instead of going and following the instructions, because Narottama Das Thakur in one sense was the godbrother, not really initiated by the same guru, but in the same level, of Ramchandra Kaviraj's spiritual master, which is Srinivasa Acharya. So Ramchandra Kaviraj started hitting himself like with a broom, and Narottama ran up to him and just embraced him and said, don't, you're causing me pain by doing this. So these are, extreme cases of just like detachment, not a repulsion, as I mentioned before, but extreme cases of detachment. And then you even have a story of Bart Maharaj. As soon as he got the okay to leave his kingdom, everything was being taken care of. It's described he left it like one leaves what? Latrine after passing stool. I mean, that's a very picturesque type of description, isn't it? Like, ooh. And latrines aren't modern bathrooms where you just flush and then it's all gone. It remains there in the latrine. So he leaves like that, and then there's many other stories. Then Markandeya Rishi, he didn't even bother. He says, "Oh no, building a house, shelter. I'm going to live, a short life, only as long as I have hairs on my body. Each hair represents a lifetime of Lord Brahma that I'll live for. I don't want to waste any time." And even Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he was chanting his billion rounds, it's described he even fixed the roof of his house, right? He was holding an umbrella because it was raining. It's like sometimes it rains here, the water gets on the floor. So maybe we should have umbrellas in the temple room. So anyway, he was holding an umbrella and chanting his rounds because he didn't want to waste any time. And then you have the story of Raghunath Das Goswami, who basically they couldn't keep him, and also Narottama Das Thakur, they couldn't keep him at home. It's a similar story, a parallel story, where his parents just hired guards, and Narottama had to escape, and Raghunath Das Goswami had to escape, and Lord Chaitanya had to tell him, just cool it for a while, because he was so detached and so not interested, even though he was quite expert. And this is another thing, like sometimes the people in India think, someone will join the Krishna conscious movement because they couldn't do anything. They were actually incompetent in the material world, so, they came to the temple, so at least they could get 3 square a day. That means 3 meals a day. So they get 3 meals a day, and then in this way, they'll be taken care of, couldn't do anything else. But actually, these were very, very intelligent personalities. Narottama Das Thakur, of course, great scholar, Bengali language, poetry, and then Raghunath Das Goswami. I mean, all these personalities were extremely qualified. Rupa Goswami, they were in charge of basically under the Muslim governor, they were in charge of so many, the treasury, all the different positions. And so then they just left everything because they became absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So, what does that mean for us? I mean, these are gopis, Narottama Das Thakur. These are all pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And basically, this is their pastime. However, we do not want to follow or imitate the gopis and just drop everything. We find examples of devotees who are on that same level. There were gopis or Manjari gopis who didn't drop everything. We have the example of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was on the highest level of devotional service, and he was extremely attentive to his responsibilities. I mean, basically, he had one wife, the wife died, passed away, then he got married again, and taking care of his children, raising his children, being a court judge, and, basically not dropping everything, which is really interesting. So, and there's many other examples too, like Prabhupada took initiation. He didn't just drop everything, relinquish his responsibilities towards his wife and everything like that. So I get this question very often from people, not when they first take up Krishna consciousness. Remember, this is when they first take up Krishna consciousness, not after 5 or 10 years. Because after 5 or 10 years, if they're still around, they realize they shouldn't engage in an activity called spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing, of course, this is one of the topics I've been speaking about. Spiritual bypassing means to deny that you have certain needs. And also, it also means to deny that you have certain responsibilities in this world that will be productive, not counterproductive, for carrying out the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So there's two things to consider before you just drop everything. Sometimes I get these text messages. I just want to drop everything. No more husbands, no more wives, no more, what is that? What is that poem? No more teachers, dirty looks. Anyways, so, you get these things, so how, I have to work in this job, I have to do this, what should I do, So this, because they're unaware of these two factors. The two factors, of course, are they have basic needs, because they're not gopis yet. They may be gopis, but there's still a lot of dirt between realizing it and not realizing it. You understand? There's still a lot of dirt on the heart that really has to be taken care of. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, before they brought Lord Jagannath to the Gundicha temple, there was the cleansing of the Gundicha temple. First that has to happen, the Gundicha Marjana. So, so people don't consider that they have certain needs, material needs or whatever you may call them, such as, we've talked about this before, air, food, light, water, friendship. I was talking to a group of pujaris last night. Yesterday morning, that's where I was instead of attending the morning program. And I was talking about the needs the pujaris have. And I was talking about basically sleep. Here are pujaris worshiping Radha and Krishna. And I talked about you need sleep. And if you don't get enough sleep, you're going to get sick. And if you don't get enough sleep, you're going to become crazy. And which happens. People do lose their minds. And you're not going to be able to continue in Krishna consciousness if you don't get enough sleep or food. And you have to also, spiritual needs, you have to be able to read Prabhupada's books on a regular basis. And then we got questions at the end. They said, but what if you have to do something? The deities have to be worshipped. You can't just neglect it. I said at this point, and then I offered my apologies to Dishringa Kovachu, who was online. It was his, actually, organization. I said that they have to reduce things. Because if you don't reduce things, I'm not saying that we're not at that state. We're able to keep up here. We start out very reduced. But Prabhupada actually said you don't start something unless you can continue it. So we've always been very practical here. When sometimes people have said, you should do this, you install more deities and things like that. And I just said, no, because you can't continue it. That's it. That's a standard. You can start in a very, I don't even want to say lower standard, but a simpler standard. And then you can work your way up as you're absolutely sure long term you can keep up that thing. Not just, everybody's enthusiastic at the installation. Then the pujaris are all fighting, can I wake the deities up? Yeah. It's just like, wow, you gotta fight, you gotta take a list. People have to wait for 3 years to be on the list to do the deity worship, right? But then come, 30 years later, can you wake the deities up? No, I'm tired. Someone else do it. So in this way, In this way, it actually, one has to consider things long-term, like that. So, paste. And of course, I always use the example of the rabbit and the tortoise, turtle, whatever, or hare is the same thing as rabbit. In this way, so one has to be aware that they're not on a high level, or if they want to continue. And also in the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada makes that point in the story of Gajendra Mokshana, that he says that Gajendra was fighting the crocodile in the water, which is not his natural environment. And crocodile's natural environment is the water, right? So one has to be aware of these things, not just drop everything. One has to think of the future. What am I going to need in the future just to keep myself going? What's going to happen in 20 years or 30 years from now? Of course, we depend on Krishna, but also we have our intelligence. And so then on the other hand, we have to think what's best for spreading Krishna consciousness. And what I've seen is what's really good for spreading Krishna consciousness. We have a lot of nice married people who can give Krishna consciousness to others. I mean, there may be a few sannyasis, but basically, traditionally, it's the householders who are the gurus, who can actually share, be in one place and train up people and see to others' spiritual welfare. I mean, one of the problems with the Gurukul system was that it was basically a bunch of brahmacharis in most cases. I mean, there's some householders, but basically a bunch of brahmacharis taking care of the kids. I mean, that doesn't work. There has to be a balance there. So one has to consider that factor too. So then we get to the point of trying to understand, how to encourage someone who's feeling this urge to drop everything. There's the question that people give me all the time. So, I have to go to work. I have to see this husband every day. Can I change him? No, they never say that, can I change him? But they think, I don't want any more husbands. The last life. I don't want any more wives. This is Falgu Vairagya, first of all. Sometimes, or crematorium Vairagya. It's in the mode of passion. Mode of passion means you want to give up something because, it causes some difficulty. That's passionate renunciation according to Krishna and the Gita, isn't it? That something is difficult, okay, give it up. Like that. I mean, just like yesterday, I was driving a car, and I was thinking, this is a horrible car. Because I'm used to a fancier car, somehow or other. I drove a Prius yesterday. And I said, get rid of it. But I needed it. Anyway, so how do you deal with it with people who have this attraction for Krishna? And it's natural to have this attraction for Krishna. And you're going to the university. What are you going to do? Isn't it? Or you're married. And your husband just wants to be fed. And you're just thinking of feeding the deities. Sorry. What do you do? Well, it's very easy. You actually have to see these things as connected to Krishna. You have to ask yourself the question, why am I doing these things? So specifically, most of the questions I get are asked about the job that someone has to have or the university that someone has to go to. Not so much about the husband or the wife, just seriously speaking. So I explain that you should see what you're doing as devotional service and be attached to it. Because this is Krishna's paraphernalia. Sometimes devotees are so detached they don't clean their car, they don't change the oil in their car, they don't clean the temple. I'm not the body. They wear different colored socks. Some people wear different colored socks just for calling attention on Sankirtan. One of my godbrothers is like that. He wears a funny hat and different colored socks. I mean, that's deliberate. Whether that's a good strategy or not, we're not going to talk about in class right now. But in any case, it's just like you have to see everything is connected to Krishna. All right, so you're raising your family. They're Krishna's parts and parcels. You're trying to engage them in Krishna service. You have to maintain your body. You're working. You have to maintain your body so that you could serve Krishna. You're sleeping so you'll have enough energy and you won't be so cranky the next day that you'll burn out all the devotees that you come in contact with. So you really have to connect everything you're doing to Krishna, even though it's apparently mundane. I'm just saying apparently. But it's not. And Prabhupada said one should become attached to the paraphernalia that they're using to serve Krishna. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says that ultimately one becomes attached to the bhakti ras. And that's why we have Varnashram, is because people are attached. Like the example, of course, Arjuna is a pure devotee of the Lord. But, he's basically has some Kshatriya attachment, manifesting some Kshatriya attachment. So that attachment, when dovetailed in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, helps one become liberated. Brahmarpanam, Brahmahabir, Brahmagno, Brahmanatam, Brahmatena Gantavyam, Brahmakarma Samadhinam. It says that when you offer something to Krishna, that thing becomes spiritual. So if someone is married, someone's working a job, you offer the results to Krishna. And of course, with a job, that means you maintain your family, and also you give some money to spread Krishna consciousness, or you help print books, or you assist the Vaishnavas. So it can all be engaged in Krishna's service. And all right, let's say if someone's married to a Rakshasa. I'm not talking about Bhimsen, who was married to a Rakshasa, anyway. But let's say you're married to someone who's completely averse to Krishna consciousness. Krishna has put you in that situation to help develop a sense of compassion, to see Krishna behind that, and develop a sense of tolerance, and to try to give Krishna consciousness to the person gradually, instead of shoving Krishna consciousness down a person's throat. Just like I'm at the university, and having to deal with so many people, they're in different types of wild Maya. And many people are eating meat, that we're talking to, coming to our programs. And it's not that we reject them, we actually give them as much as we can. That's Krishna putting us in that situation, so that they can come gradually to Krishna consciousness. So in other words, one sees everything is connected. Yomam Pashati Sarvatra Sarvam Shamai Pashati. So one sees everything is connected to Krishna, and you're always asking yourself, why am I doing this ultimately? Yes, I'm working to maintain my family. Why am I maintaining my family? I'm maintaining my family so that they can progress in Krishna consciousness. I'm maintaining my family also because I may have this need, for friendship, family, society, friendship, and love, and we should be aware, conscious of our needs, and not be engaged in spiritual bypassing, thinking that we don't have these particular needs, and then big ballet, big monkey, Ceylon jumping melancholy, then we don't make it. So if you want to make it long-term in Krishna consciousness, don't imitate the gopis, follow in their mood. Follow what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, don't act like a crazy person, said to Raghunath Das Goswami. Don't act like a crazy person, act like a lady who has a paramour. So in other words, you do everything perfectly. Prabhupada said we should be perfect ladies and gentlemen in this world, do everything perfectly. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, dealing with court cases that were certainly mundane in most cases. but perfect example, perfectly ethical, and moral, ethical, and in this way, people will be attracted to Krishna consciousness when they see us as perfectly ethical, moral persons. So, on that happy note, saved by the conch shell, which is not blown. Oh, Gangamata Goswamini. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's other persons too. Jai Shri Shri Radhagalukananda ki jai. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Anandam Aravindanayatacham Bharavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam
Kandar Pakodhitamaniya Vishesha Shobha. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Angane Asasakadan
Triyatriti Manti Pasyanti Panti Kayanti Jiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Now the wife song.
Govindam Adipurusham
I can get away with it today. There's no one else is here.
Govindam Adipurusham.
Wake restore.
Uh-oh. Okay. A little bit different rhythm. Namamishara Ram Satchit Anandurupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Vrajamanam Namamishwaram Satchit Anandurupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Brajamanam Yasodaveo Lukalad Davamanam Param Rishama Jantato Truchakopya Yasodaveo Lukalad Davamanam Param Rishama Jantato Truchakopya Rudhantamohurneta Yumam Rajantam Karamboja Indubena Santankanetam Rudhantamohurneta Yumam Rajantam Karamboja Yugmena Satankanetam Mohosatsakampat Tire Kankakanta Sita Graivam Damodaram Bhaktivadam Mohosasakampatire Kankakanta Dagraivam Namodaram Bhaktivadam Iti Sriksa Lila Peer Ananda Kunde Swagoshamnima Shantam Akyapayantam Iti Drixvali Labir Ananda Kunde Swagoshamnima Shantam Akyapayantam Tari Shitake Shobaktar Jitatvam Punat Prematas Tamshata Pritivande Tari Shitake Shobaktar Jitatvam Punat Prematas Samsata Itivane Varam Deva Moksham Na Namokshavatimva Nachanya Vrenehamba Rishadabhiya Varam Deva Moksham Na Mokshavatimba Nachanya Vinehamba Rishadabhiya Idam Deva Pur Napsa Gopalabalam Sadame Manas Yavirastam Kimanyaya Idam Deva Purnata Gopalabalam Sadame Manas Yavirastam Kimanyaya Idam Te Mukham Bosham Achantanilai Ritam Kuntalai Zikda Ratasya Gopya Idam Temu Kambojam Achantanilai Ritam Kuntalai Zikda Ratasya Gopya Moschamitam Bhima Raktadarame Manasyaviras Tamalam Lakshalabai Mohoschamitam Beba Raktadarame Manasyaviras Tamalam Lakshalabai Namo Deva Damodara Ananta Vishnu Prasida Prapodoka Jalabdi Magnam Namo Deva Damodara Ananta Vishnu Prasida Prapodoka Jalabdi Magnam Ripatres Divres Tate Dinambatano Grandeshamam Yamme Yakshi Drisha Ripatres Divres Tate Dinambatano Shamamagyame Yakshidresha Kuverat Matshobhata Murchayavajadvat Twayamakchitav Bhakti Vachokritocha Kuverat Majobhata Murchayavajadvat Twayamochitav Bhakti Vachokritocha Tata Prema Bhaktim Sva Kame Prayacha Namokshe Grahomesi Damodareha Tata Prema Bhaktim Sva Prayacha Namokshe Grahomesi Damodareha Namaste Sudamne Pradipti Damne Tvadiotarayata Vishvashadane Namaste Sudamne Dipti Damne Tvadiotarayata Vishvashadane Namo Radhikaya Yaya Tvatiya Priyaya Namo Nata Lilaya Devaya Tubhyam Namo Radhikaya Tvatiya Priyaya Namo Nata Lilaya Devaya Tubhyam Namo Mishwaram Satchit Ananda Rupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Rajamanam Namo Mishwaram Satchit Ananda Rupam Nasat Kundalam Gokule Jamanam Yasodaveo Lukalam Davamanam Param Richtamat Yantato Ruchakovya Yasodaveo Lukalam Davamanam Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Adamodara Radha, Adamodara Radhe. Jaya Adamodara Radha, Adamodara Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe. Jaya Hagalokenan Radha, Hagalokenan Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Sri Radhe. Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Paravidakacharya, all Sthitara Sitashi Simad, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Ha Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopikapatna Swayam Kunda, Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Mathuranam Ki Jai, Jagadadha Swami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Srimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, we'll read the translation. To the Supreme Controller who possesses an eternal form of blissful knowledge, whose glistening earrings swing to and fro, who manifested himself in Gokula, who stole the butter that the gopis kept hanging from the rafters of their, and who then quickly jumped up and ran in retreat in fear of Mother Yashoda, who was ultimately caught. To that Supreme Lord, Sri Damodar, I offer my humble obeisances. Upon seeing his mother's whipping stick, he cried and rubbed his eyes again and again with his two lotus hands. His eyes were fearful and his breathing quick, and his mother Yashoda bound his belly with ropes. He shivered in fright and his pearl necklace shook. To the Supreme Lord, Sri Damodar, who is bound by his devotees' love, I offer my humble obeisances. Those super excellent pastimes of Lord Krishna's babyhood drown the inhabitants of Gokula in pools of ecstasy. To the devotees who were attracted only to his majestic aspect of Narayana and Vaikuntha, the Lord herein reveals, I am conquered and overwhelmed by pure loving devotion. To the Supreme Lord Damodar, my obeisances hundreds and hundreds of times. O Lord, although you are able to give all kinds of benedictions, I do not pray to you for liberation or eternal life in Vaikuntha, nor any other boon. My only prayer is that your childhood pastimes may constantly appear in my mind. O Lord, I do not even want to know your feature of Paramatma. I simply wish that your childhood pastimes may ever be enacted in my heart. O Lord, the cheeks of your blackish lotus face, which is encircled by locks of curling hair, have become reddened like bimba fruit due to Mother Yashoda's kisses. What more can I describe than this? Millions of opulences are of no use to me, but may this vision constantly remain in my mind. O unlimited Vishnu, O Master, O Lord, be pleased upon me. I'm drowning in an ocean of sorrow, and I'm almost like a dead man. Please shower the rain of mercy upon me. Uplift me and protect me with your nectarian vision. O Lord Damodar, in your form as a baby, Mother Yashoda bound you to a grinding stone with a rope for tying cows. You then freed the sons of Kuvera, Manigriva, and Nalakuvara, who are cursed to stand as trees, and you gave them the chance to become your devotees. Please bless me in the same way. I have no desire for liberation into your effulgence. O Lord, the entire universe was created by Lord Brahma, who was born from your abdomen, which was bound with a rope by Mother Yashoda. To this rope I offer my humble obeisances. I offer my obeisances to your most beloved Srimati Radharani and to your unlimited pastimes. Lord Damodar ki jai. Okay. Tarpanamarjanam. Jivanam. Arjanam.